Happy coding.
Hey there, and welcome to our next video in our series of Intro to Web Dev. So in previous weeks, previous videos, we learned about like web dev concepts. So we learned about HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and then some like other concepts that are sort of building on that. So things like fetch and the idea of libraries, the idea of APIs, all that stuff. This week or this video is a little different in that I am going to kind of pivot and talk about machine learning. And the reason I'm doing that is, well, how do I say this? ML or machine learning or ML is sort of the new hotness in the tech industry. And it's a like part of being a web developer these days is sort of navigating these tools and forming your own opinions on how effective they are, the ethics around them, all that stuff. So I wrote this tutorial here that I have on the screen, and usually what I do is I write a tutorial and then I pretty much just record a video that talks about the same concepts. In this instance, the tutorial and the video are going to be pretty different. So this written tutorial talks about the background of machine learning, specifically these tools like ChatGPT and Google Gemini, and gets into like how they work behind the scenes using things like embeddings and neural networks. And if you are curious about how these tools actually work, then go read that tutorial. In fact, I'm guessing most of you are reading that tutorial and this video is embedded in that. But if for some reason you came to this video first, I would recommend going and reading that that tutorial first, and I'll put a link in the description and all that good stuff. But in this video, I am going to focus less on how the tools work and more on like just logistically how to use the tools. So I'm just going to dive right in, just like I sort of always do. So there are many, many ML tools, and you can do a search for them if you want to, and they are used for everything from like generating images. So you can say like, give me a picture of a cat wearing a headband with fuzzy ears, and there are tools that will give you an image like this. And again, giant disclaimer, there are ethical concerns with that, and like stealing art and stealing jobs, all that stuff, stifling human creativity, the accumulation of wealth into big tech companies. And I do think those conversations are important, but I also want to help demystify some of this. So these tools exist. Okay, that's all I'm going to say. Form your own opinions is the real goal. So that's an example of an ML tool. Is something like I don't know, Crayon is one, Craiyon, I think. And you can type in stuff like that, and you can say, give me a picture of a cat wearing fuzzy bunny ears, or give me a picture of, I don't know, this hippopotamus eating pancakes, that kind of silly thing. So that's one set of tools, and the other sort of set of tools is large language models like ChatGPT or Google Gemini, and that's where I'm going to spend most of my time in this video. The other one that I want to call out is GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot, and this is a tool that GitHub put out that supposedly, anyway, helps you write code in the same way. But you can use ChatGPT and Gemini for the same thing. And they're free for now, anyway. Tools like ChatGPT, which I have up here, and Gemini, which I have here, they are pretty similar, but what they are at their core is a chatbot. So you can type prompts into this little text box and have a, in quotation marks, conversation with these ML tools. So I don't know, I can say something like, tell me a joke about a squirrel, and hit enter. And here we go. Why don't squirrels ever throw wild parties? Because they don't want to go nuts. Okay. Um, I didn't ask you to tell me a funny joke, but you can see that I can have a back and forth here. Let's try the same thing with Gemini. Tell me a joke about squirrels. And let's see. A squirrel was bragging to his friends, I'm so fast, I can climb a tree faster than anyone. A wise old owl hooted, is that so? Well, let's see you climb down a tree full of cats. I don't even get that one, but whatever. Um, it's still a chatbot. It's still back and forth. So I can also do things like I don't know, help me write an email to my boss asking for a raise. And I'll copy and paste that into Gemini just to sort of compare. So here is ChatGPT saying, here's a professional and polite draft for your email, dear boss's name, and here is the sort of template for an email that I might send to my boss to ask for a raise. And the idea, well, the idea that they want you to have anyway, is that you might use this as a starting point and maybe fill in some of the blanks, maybe change some of the languages, some of the language choices here, and maybe it's a good starting point for your own sort of writing or creativity. You can also have more of a back and forth. So once you have a prompt, you can ask for changes essentially. So you can say, make the email more demanding and remind them that I'm just going to say make it more demanding. Make the email more demanding and hit enter. And ChatGPT here will handle that request. It's not always right. It's not always accurate, and it doesn't always get it right. But the idea is that the interface, anyway, is a chatbot that you can have a back and forth with to have this kind of conversational sort of thing. I'm tempted to just do the same thing with Gemini just to compare and contrast. Help me write an email to my boss asking for a raise, and they're pretty similar, but the idea is the same there. And this kind of tool is, I don't know, it's the thing that the big tech company is obsessed over. So Google is all but replacing Google search with Gemini these days, and sort of adding Gemini to all of their products. And there's like many, many, many of these tools popping up all the time. So you can also do something like, I don't know, what is the average lifespan of a squirrel? This is something I might type into Google or DuckDuckGo, and now I can also type it into these like sort of chat bots. Again, sometimes this information is inaccurate. It does what's called hallucinating, and that is because of the way it's trained, which I talked about in the written tutorial, so I won't get too far into it, but it's essentially trained on the entire internet and then sort of randomized a little bit. And so sometimes stuff will be wrong, but you can imagine that this is a little easier, I guess, than going to Google, searching through a bunch of results, most of which are going to be spam these days, and trying to find the one sort of source of truth. These tools are so new that these companies mostly haven't added any advertisements or anything to them. So they're still like pretty clean. And so, this is what some folks are gravitating towards, is this sort of chatbot interface. And I can do the same thing with Gemini. What is the average lifespan of a squirrel? Let's see if they agree. And okay, squirrel 5 to 6 years, and sure, 6 to 12. I don't know, 3 to 7. You make up your own mind. I don't know. But the idea is that I can use these tools as either a back and forth that I'm having with the chatbot, or just as like a thing I can ask questions to. Let's see. So one of the reasons that I am talking about it is the sort of idea that this has an impact on education. So let's say that I am a student and I am writing a book report, and I didn't come up with any of these examples ahead of time. So let's say I want to write a book report on, I don't know, Stephen King. And so I can say, like, help me write a book report comparing and contrasting Stephen King's novels. Okay. And, here it is. It's spitting out something that I might use as my book report, as my, at least a template. And, you know, um, it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. And this is, a growing, I don't know if I want to say concern, but a growing maybe conversation in education is what effect these tools will have on education. So if, I am a teacher, so when I assign a project, if ChatGPT can just do those projects, what does that mean? And I don't have definitive answers to any of that, but these are some of the questions that folks are starting to ask. And so, yeah, I mean, from here, I could, keep going down this one particular example, and I could say, hey, ChatGPT, instead of novel one, use Salem's Lot. So maybe I will actually do that. So instead of novel one, use Salem's Lot. And instead of novel two, so these are like placeholders that it put in there. Novel two, let's see, use, I don't know, the stand, or is that, I think it was called The Body in when it was actually a book. Use The Dark Tower, right? That's a Stephen King series, right? I don't actually know. But let's see what it does. And here it is. So, title, comparative book report, exploring themes and styles in Salem's Lot and The Dark Tower. So, again, I'm sort of having this back and forth, and it's doing a reasonable job of filling in some of these blanks. And, I'm not even reading this. Like, I don't actually know if it's nonsense or not. But honestly, a lot of the time, you can't even really tell if it's nonsense or not, especially for something that's a little bit more opinionated, like a book report. I don't know. While this is doing it, I'll sort of do the same thing in Gemini just to see. And yeah, okay. So it's interesting. Gemini is actually saying, like, what's your focus? Like, what do you want to compare and contrast, either themes or writing styles or setting? And here it's like more telling me like the structure I might use. So, it's kind of interesting, but just another like example of the kind of thing that you might use these tools for, that people are currently exploring using these tools for. That's wishy-washy enough. So I will, I don't know, sort of admit to, I don't know, I have my own challenges, I guess, with these tools and with machine learning in general, and I wrote a little bit about them in the written tutorial. But I would be lying if I said I never used them. So a common thing that I do is I use them to help come up with quiz questions. So I'm a teacher. I'm teaching Intro to Web Dev, and so I have done things like this where I'll say something like, give me a list of multiple choice questions about HTML tags. And this conversation is all over the place, so I don't know if it's going to confuse ChatGPT, if it's going to like add Stephen King stuff to these answers or these questions. But it's a way to sort of get started. And honestly, I usually don't like most of what ChatGPT or Gemini give me when I ask it a question like that. But seeing the kinds of stuff it comes up with does sort of, or has helped me sort of, I don't know, unlock like, okay, instead of that, I'll actually ask about this, like that kind of thing. But this is a way that I have, used it myself. Oh man, I should have given it a limit because that's too many. The other thing that I have done before is like once I have a question, then I have to like come up with like a bunch of possible answers, and like I can give the right answer, but now I have to come up with sort of alternatives. So another thing I commonly do is say like, give me a list of plausible but incorrect answers to the question, and then I'll give it like the multiple choice question that I am sort of noodling on. So like, I don't know, what, oh man, what is an HTML tag? And it will mostly work. So here are, some plausible but incorrect answers to my question, what is an HTML tag? So I can kind of pick and choose from these and use these in the quiz that I then give to students. So, again, like it's never like perfect in my not so humble opinion, but it is a way to sort of just get something and then change it. Okay, so that's kind of how I have used these tools in my personal or professional life. The other big way that these get I don't know talked about or used is in coding, and that's kind of why we're here. So I have shown you a few ways that you can interact with these tools, either silly or serious, or like with like book reports, that kind of thing. You can also use it to write code. So in addition to like giving you like English back and forth, you can ask for code. So I can say something like, I don't know, give me an HTML file that I don't know contains a heading and a paragraph. And I even say like about squirrels. I don't know why squirrels are my thing today, but whatever. And here it is, like spitting out some code. And maybe I'll do the same thing with Gemini just while that's sort of processing. And sure, so here is some HTML, and it's got some HTML tags. It's just at a glance, it looks like decent. It's got like a head tag, closing tag. I'm just kind of glancing at it, like looking to see if it has like open and closing tags. It does. And here's a paragraph, a heading and a paragraph about squirrels. So like I could copy paste this into my project. So like if I wanted to use this code in my project, I could go over here. So I just have this open to the glitch editor just to have a place to put code. So I'm just going to get rid of what I had there by default and paste in what ChatGPT gave me. And here it is. It's not the most interesting website in the world, but it works. It's got a heading and a paragraph just like I asked it to. And let's see what Gemini did. Gemini did something pretty similar. So if I copy this code and paste it in, it's interesting to see like what one, in quotation marks, chooses to include versus not, but they're pretty similar. And it, again, it kind of works. So then maybe I'll say to, what I use Gemini here. So here I'll say like, I don't know, add some styling to make it look more interesting. So now I'm like asking it to add some CSS to my project, and sure enough, if I copy that and paste it in, then sure, it looks like it changed the background color, maybe did some like alignment on the text. And, it's not the most beautiful or most interesting website in the world, but, I didn't actually write any code. I'm just copy pasting, which has, sort of these ramifications on the industry for what does it mean to write code if you are interacting with these tools. So now I get, I don't know, kind of, I don't know, curious, or I don't know, I kind of want to poke at it a little bit. So I might say something like, add a button that shows a message when you click it. I'm not going to be any more specific than that. And let's see if it gets it right. So I see that it has some button styling, and it does have a button with an on click, and it does indeed have a script tag there. So let's copy that and paste that in. And there it goes. There's the click me. Let's see if this works. Click me, and sure enough, squirrels are cute. It says that was Gemini being a little funny, but it works, right? And now from here, I could say like, I could change this code myself, or I could go back to Gemini and say, change the pop up to, I don't know, make the noise a squirrel makes. I don't even know what noise a squirrel makes, like maybe little weird noises like, but make the noise a squirrel makes. And let's see if it, like, I don't know, in quotation marks, knows how to do that. And so this is where it gets a little interesting. Like what I meant was I just wanted it to change the text to, cheap, 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 something like that. But instead, what it has done is it's added this audio tag, and it's trying to play an MP3, but like I don't have an MP3 file, and ChatGPT or Gemini here is not going to give me an MP3. So at this point, this code like wouldn't actually work. But in order to reason about that, I have to read through the code myself. Like this is where I can't just naively copy paste and be like, okay, well, I guess that's probably what I meant. I have to look at it and understand. So actually, I'm going to kind of copy paste and see what happens. I can kind of guess at what will happen, but let's paste it in. And now looks like, okay, so it's funny because it says same CSS styles as before. So, I would have to copy those in, but let's just click here, and I want to open up my JavaScript console just to see where that, clear that out and say click me. And, okay, so I get this error message, and what I might do is just copy that into Gemini and see like, hey, what the heck? I got this error when I tried that code. Let's see if it knows. When I used that code, I got this error, and I'll paste it in, and I'll hit enter. And now we're kind of going down a rabbit hole where it's saying there could be a few reasons for this error. Double check your path, and it's not actually suggesting that I don't actually have the file, which is my actual problem. But I can have this back and forth, but the takeaway I think is that it's important that I understand like the underlying mechanisms, that I knew that I had to open up my JavaScript console to see the error, for example, and I knew that this was a file. Like I have to understand the code that Gemini is giving me or that ChatGPT is giving me for it to really like work. But what I'll say here is like I didn't want to play a sound. I just wanted to change the text in the pop up. Let's see if Gemini can sort of correct itself. And, now it's giving me like a snippet, and I would have to like go back and get the original code that it gave me and then sort of paste this in. Maybe I'll ask Gemini to do that, and I'll say, give me the whole file, including the CSS and JavaScript. And okay, now it's got the styling back, it's got the button, and it's got the squirrels say squeak. So let's try that. I'm not convinced squirrels actually say squeak, but okay. And I'll paste that in, and I'll keep it open for now, I guess. And I'll say click me, and sure, it actually works. It says squirrels say squeak. So you can have this back and forth is I think the point here. And sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong, but I have to understand the difference. I have to read through the code. I have to think really carefully, think critically about the code that the tool is giving me, whether that's ChatGPT or Gemini or something like GitHub Copilot. But I can sort of have this back and forth. Now, I will say in my experience, this works for kind of smaller projects, I would say. But once I get a little more involved, then it's less about having these tools do the whole project for me and more about me identifying like smaller pieces of the bigger project. And then asking, for it to like fill in those specific things. So if I wanted to create, I don't know, a page or a website that had like 5 different pages, I wouldn't say, hey, give me a project that has 5 different pages. I would say, I'm going to start with this one page and focus on that, maybe use these tools to help me, and sort of serve as the manager in a way where I am deciding like, okay, step 1, do this with this page, step 2, do this page. And then I'm like sort of, delegating to these tools for the like lower level details. I will say I personally tend to not do that because I just like to code it myself. But I don't know, this is the direction that the industry claims that it is going. So it's interesting to think about. So, I mean, that's the gist of what I really wanted to introduce in this video. I am tempted to try out a couple of assignments that I have used as a teacher, that I have assigned as a teacher. I haven't actually tried this before. So I don't know. I'm curious to see like how does ChatGPT and Gemini sort of stack up against the assignments that I actually use in this class. So I don't know. I'm just going to try it. So I'm jumping over here to the class website, and here is the basically the first real like HTML assignment in this class. And what it asks folks to do is create a web page with 10 HTML tags. So I want to start by just copy pasting a bunch of it. So I want to start with here, like create a web page using at least 10 HTML tags. And yeah, I'm just going to copy, I don't know, maybe the whole thing and just see what happens. So I'm going to paste that into, I don't know, I'm going to pick on ChatGPT. I've been on Gemini for a minute. So I'm just going to paste that in. Literally it's going to be dumb and have like weird stuff in there, like the actual HTML. So let's see if I can get a better version of that. Yeah, it doesn't like that I'm copying like HTML into ChatGPT. It thinks that I'm probably trying to hack it, but I promise I'm not. Let's see if I just paste that in. Oh, that's weird. No, it really doesn't like that. Okay. Maybe what I'll try is copying this like into Notepad first. You can't really see what I'm doing, but I'm just pasting it into Notepad. And yeah, I don't know, maybe this is actually, it's an annoying thing with this actual editor. That's annoying, but whatever. I'm going to maybe just ignore that for a second, and I'll, I don't know, say, I'll just delete this line, I guess. Or maybe I'll just keep it and see what happens. So I'm just going to hit enter. And all right, so it's giving me an HTML file, and that is, not shocking because we saw that with the squirrel example. And this one's a little different. This one is okay. I didn't mention anything about chocolate chip cookie recipes. Did I in the assignment? Oh yeah, favorite recipe. So it's picking up on one of the examples that I used in the project sort of description. And I don't know. I'm going to copy the same thing into Gemini. See what happens. And Gemini, are you going to work? Yeah, a little. It kind of gets rid of the formatting, but that's fine. I'm just going to see what happens. So ChatGPT is still going, and it's kind of interesting because it gives me the HTML file, and then it says here's the tags that I used, and then it even gives me instructions for glitch. So that's the editor that we've been using. So copy the code above and paste it into your project in glitch. Like that is true. That's what you should do. And it's kind of interesting. So let's see if I sort of copy this code and I put it into glitch. What's it end up looking like? And okay, sure. It is indeed a recipe for baking perfect cookies. And this is kind of funny. This placeholder.com thing, I think this is actually a pretty common, I don't know, tell. A lot of these ML tools use them. So whenever I see this, I'm like, yeah, okay. It's fine, but there are these little tells. And it's even funny. It says like contact us at info@cookieheaven.com. I kind of wonder if that is a real website, but I'm not going to click it. But it kind of works. And let's see how Gemini does. I've got this HTML, and it's funny. It even includes CSS, even though I didn't tell it to include CSS, but it has decided to. And it does say here are the 10 tags. In fact, it has 12, and then it also says here's how to create a page in Glitch, which the project sort of description had. And if I paste that in, then sure enough, it's a website. I'm not sure if this like picture makes a lot of sense, but it's like a result of how these tools work is they don't always make logical sense. They're just sort of, connecting some dots and filling in some blanks. Um, and this goes to beculture.org. So, okay, I don't know if that's real or not, but in this case, it did pretty well, I think. And I'm not exactly sure. I'm not going to count exactly how many HTML tags it ended up with. And in the original requirements, like these tags didn't count towards the 10, but because this is being annoying and not letting me copy and paste this exact section, I'm not going to bother correcting it, but it worked decently, I'll say. So now let's try something else. Let's try, I don't know, maybe I'll try fetch and APIs like I tried the first week. Now I'm going to jump down to like the last week. And so this is a little more involved. And let's see if this does, let's see how it handles this like more, I don't know, advanced assignment. So I'm just going to copy and paste the entire thing directly into ChatGPT and directly into Gemini. And in this one, the idea was that folks are going to use an API endpoint and use the fetch function to call that API. Let's see what they come up with. So here is something. I would say, okay, so it's splitting up the code into a few different things. So this is giving me some JavaScript. It's actually saying the OMDB API. Is this real? Might be. Open movie database. Sure. And it might work, but it's kind of, separate. So this is JavaScript and this is CSS and this is HTML. I'm kind of tempted to try to put it together. Yeah, why not? Let's try. So here is the HTML. I'm going to paste that in. And what's it say? Styles.css. So let me steal some of that. This is styles.css. And again, like, I think the thing I want to highlight here is I kind of need to know how these concepts, interact to be able to use them. Like I needed to know that, oh, hey, this is CSS that goes in a styles.css file. So it's not exactly like I can get away without writing any code myself or without understanding any code, but it's doing some of the boilerplate for me, I guess. So let me paste that in. And sure, it's not the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my entire life, but it's something. And then finally, let's see this. This is the JavaScript. So let me create a, script.js file, add this file, and paste that stuff in. So I don't know if this will work. Let's see if I delete that and movie title. Let's say, I don't know, Sunshine. It's a good movie. Get movie info and movie not found. Okay. And okay, it looks like I'm getting an error where it's saying your API key here. So maybe I need an API key, which, I'm not going to go get just for this example. But I could probably. Let's see. So I don't have an API key. Let's see what ChatGPT says. And sure, it sort of says how to do that. Go to their official site, register for an account, and sure enough, or I could use this fake data for testing. I'm not convinced this will actually work, but maybe. Sure, let's just try. I don't know. Let's try to paste this into my script.js. And, one thing that jumps out to me is this won't work. This isn't really valid code because this is just kind of in the middle of nowhere. So, that's we're getting into the areas of like invalid code. And that's part of it. That sometimes the back and forth will result in like the tool giving you code that like doesn't actually work. And again, it's important to understand that. It's important to understand like, okay, in order for this code to work, I would have to put this inside of a function. and go from there. So if I even try to run that, it's not going to work. So if I clear this out and now I say sunshine and I say get movie info, it's not even going to do anything. So if I didn't understand the content or the content that it was giving me, I'd be pretty much out of luck here, right? But I have gone through the process of understanding HTML and CSS and JavaScript, so I can sort of reason about it. But that's where it becomes important to not just like copy paste. You have to understand the underlying sort of foundational concepts. Let's see if Gemini did any better. Okay, so I can definitely help with that. All right. So this web page will the edamame recipe API. Okay, so it's giving me some description. Okay, the funny thing is here, it didn't actually give me any code. So that's funny. I'm going to say, give me the code. And all right, now it gave me some code. And let's try. So I'm going to paste this into my HTML. And where'd that go? Here. And let's see, does it, okay, gave me some CSS. I'll paste this into my CSS. And let's see, what did the style? So again, like I have to understand, like when I pasted that in, the style didn't change. So I was like, oh, what the heck? And it's because here it used style.css, but my file is named styles. So again, these little things that you kind of need to know, like how to connect everything. And did that actually do anything? Yeah, okay, it did. So again, it's not the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, but it's fine. And then here's the JavaScript, and I can sort of already tell I'm going to get a similar thing where I need an API key, but fine. And I'll put this in script.js and maybe, and I can sort of already tell, well, let's see if this is in index, it might work. Let's see. Main ingredient, I don't know, tofu, dietary restrictions. It says optional, so I'm just going to not do anything. Search recipes, and I'm not, okay, an error occurred while fetching recipes. Okay. And let's try again just to see what the error is. And okay, yeah, here it is. So get data.hits is undefined. I don't know, this is maybe related to needing an API key, but I'm not sure. So I could maybe say back here in Gemini, I don't have an API key. And here it's like giving me an alternative, which is kind of interesting. So I don't know, I'm tempted to try this. I'm going to stop in a second because, I think I could play with this stuff for a while, but the idea is, I think, the same, where you just have this back and forth. But I'm going to paste this stuff into my JS. And okay, it doesn't have any CSS, but fine. And random joke, get a joke. And that actually worked, which is pretty impressive. So why can't I don't know if that's appropriate joke API, but whatever. But that actually worked pretty well. But I did have to understand the underlying concepts. I at least had to know like where to paste my stuff in. And as your projects get a little more involved, you do have to like sort of break them down a little more, and you're more likely to get code that won't work like right out of the box. All right, so those are just some examples of these tools and how you might use them and how other folks might use them. So I don't know, my main thing is like, I'm not telling you to use them. Well, if you're in my class, I'm telling you to use them this week, but in general, my goal here is to have folks make up their own minds. I think there are some upsides to these tools. I think if you understand the underlying concepts, these tools can help you get through some of the boilerplate. I think once you get more experience, the boilerplate doesn't really take you that long, honestly. But, if you're still at a point where like it feels like a slog to output a bunch of like that same placeholder text every single time, then these tools can be pretty handy for that. However, it comes at a cost, I think, of not being able to think critically about what you're doing. And so, I don't want to put anybody on blast, but I have seen folks who are pretty clearly using ChatGPT to do all of their assignments. And once they get stuck, they get really stuck because, maybe they didn't take the time to like fully understand the syntax because they're just copy pasting. And at this point, like I don't hold it against anybody. I think it's an interesting sort of unexplored sort of niche of education. Like, what do these tools mean for education? I'm not sure that education or really society in general, to be a little more grandiose about it, has fully answered those questions. But I think it's a reality that there is a downside to relying too heavily on these tools. However, they can be really useful. And all of that is not even touching sort of the ethical side of it, which it's kind of hilarious. I'm like, oh, serious conversation time, ethics, and cat and pink bunny ears. But I do think that there are some serious, serious questions around the ethics of these tools, and especially around like, where did the training data come from? What work goes into the training of these models? Who is responsible for that? Who gets paid or not? And what impact will these tools have, or are they already having on things like misinformation, deepfakes, like the climate impacts, and sort of more generally, what does this mean for the future of technology or the internet or even society if we are giving all of this power to huge tech companies who have a track record of being kind of crappy towards their users. So right now, these tools are mostly free and don't have a ton of ads or anything, but you've seen what has happened with other sites, other big tech companies. And so what does it mean for these companies to become more and more powerful? And I don't know. I have my own thoughts, but my goal is not to just tell you what to think. My goal is to empower you to think for yourself. So I guess I'll leave it there. And my main goal here was to sort of demystify these tools, to walk through a couple of example use cases for them, and to, I don't know, plant some seeds of some questions that you might ask yourself, whether you are using these tools or, maybe other people are using these tools around you, whether you're in school or entering the workforce. What does your company say about it? What does your school say about it? But in the end, I think it's kind of up to each person to decide what their own opinions are. If that's not wishy-washy enough, then I'm happy to chat more about it if anyone is curious. But for now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. And until then, happy coding.